Welcome to the CHARBON Report. I'm Michael A. Charbon. A special welcome to our new listeners on Google, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. Today's title, America's Shot at Gun Control. A painful American reoccurring nightmare happened again. Another mass shooting, where a 15-year-old killed 3 students and wounded 8 others with a legally purchased 9mm pistol. To the world, this American horror shock value was muted, as between 2009 and 2016, there were 156 mass shootings with a total of 848 people killed and some 339 people injured. With less than 5% of the world's population, America has 46% of the world's civilian-owned guns. So does America really have a realistic shot at gun control? Regrettably, I don't think so. But listen, positive law-abiding gun ownership, hunting, and recreational shooting sports are a proud American family tradition. Guns are an intrinsic cultural piece of Americana, an indelible American right entrenched in the Second Amendment, which protects the right to keep and bear arms. Plainly said, any notion that a government or a movement or even a political body thinks that they're going to confiscate firearms on the pretext of reducing gun violence or preventing a crazed mass lone wolf shooter is summed up by Charlton Heston. They will have to take it from his cold, dead hands. The only realistic solution with any measure of success is enforcement of strict licensing, training, and registration with identity verification, working in tandem with judicial mandatory criminal penalties, which ironically exist already in many states. America's polarized political system is also ironically reflective of gun ownership. Just think, approximately 44% of Republicans, well, they own guns, compared to only 20% of Democrats. The only realistic path forward to real gun reform, with any possibility of passing political scrutiny, must bring pro-gun groups with anti-gun groups to mutually create a sensible, realistic reform that institute waiting periods, mandatory safety training courses, and detailed background checks. That's a reality. Currently, 30 states allow open carry, and 12 states allow concealed carry. Now, the failure here is not about carrying a gun. It's that in some of those states, they don't have mandatory licensing or permits. Additionally, some 29 states have passed stand your ground laws, allowing individuals to use deadly force when they feel threatened. So the trigger points are protection, freedom, and recreation versus restrictions, regulations, discouragement, and even taxation in an attempt to restrict and buy back, or even attempt to take forcibly guns back. You know, in Canada, all guns and ammunition must be in a separate locked case in a gun safe. Separate trigger locks are mandatory on all stored guns. When a Canadian applies for a restricted handgun license, part of the process mandates your wife, your ex-wife, plus your neighbor be made aware that you wish to purchase a handgun. I mean, if anybody says you're nuts, the process stops. Realistically, trigger locks would never work in America. I mean, ask an American with a handgun in a bedside drawer or in a glove compartment if they'd put a trigger lock on their gun. Not likely. To achieve gun reform, America must address and respect existing lawful gun culture folks. Some radicals, though, believe that gun control should begin with not owning one in the first place. Consider this. Ready? I don't care if you want to hunt. I don't care if you think it's your right. I say sorry. We have had enough as a nation. You're not allowed to own a gun, and if you do own a gun, I think you should go to prison. The wisdom of Rosie O'Donnell. So here's a realistic Democratic olive branch. Listen to this offer. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. Yeah, someone actually said that. The eloquent words of Democrat Beto O'Rourke. Goodness. What Democrats neglect to accept is that Americans will always possess, fire, manufacture, and purchase firearms for pleasure, sport, or security. That's a given. Consider that generally peaceful riots of 2019, which saw hoodlums settling fires and looting and conducting rampant unchallenged criminality and lawlessness on a nightly basis, Americans took steps to protect their families if violence dare come to their house. James Earl Jones said, "The world is filled with violence because criminals carry guns. We decent law-abiding citizens should also have guns, otherwise they're going to win, and the decent people will lose." In 2020, Americans purchased 23 million firearms. 8.4 million of them were first-time buyers. In January 2021 alone, 2.2 million firearms were purchased. Now, consider America's relationship with the gun. 4 in 10 people in America live in a household with a gun. In 2017, a population of 326 million Americans owned 393 million guns. That's more than one gun per person. America has approximately 19 million U.S. veterans and just over 1 million active U.S. military. So from the Wild West to shooting squirrels with .22s to the military, guns are a fabric of America. Guns are also part of urban America. Listen, a gang culture attitude where the threat of busting a cap or a drive-by, it's a reality. Social media posts, musical lyrics, even movies, they all glorify the gun as a status symbol. Tragically, gun homicides disproportionately impact African American communities. In 2017, over 14,000 African Americans died in gun homicides, which represented 58.5% of the national figure, despite only representing 13% of the total U.S. population. Sadly, in 2019, nearly 106 U.S. citizens died every day due to gun violence. In America's 38,000 gun deaths, 14,000 were homicides, while just under 24,000, that's 24,000, almost two-thirds, they were suicides. Suicide by gun. There will always be irrational, selfless, terrible people who will use a gun to do unthinkable, horrible things. Listen, evil exists. Society's frustration and disgust based on the lone crazy mass shooter will come to a head, and it may just be an act just as irrational. I predict the 2022 midterms will see Democrats highlight gun control as an emotional election issue. They'll traipse that out left and right. Lawful gun owners and organizations with Republicans must unite to have a gun position, or politics will override common sense. America literally has one shot. You know why there's a Second Amendment? In case the government fails to follow the first one. And that, my friends, was Rush Limbaugh. Finally, please click and share and kindly subscribe. If you listen to the audio versions, please subscribe to Spotify or Google Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. I thank you for those considerations, and until next time, God bless and stay safe. I'm Michael A. Charbon for the CHARBON Report.